Hello, welcome to the English Fluency Methods YouTube channel, and today we're going to have a look at phrasal verbs beginning with the letter A. And this is really an exercise in becoming familiar with phrasal verbs, and the other part of it is playing around with tense constructions so that you become familiar with creating sentences in the past, the present, and the future. Okay. So you really just have to go through this, work with this first to really understand how it works. But the basic idea is this. I'm going to present the phrasal verb, and then I'm going to explain, what it is and when it's used, things like that. And then the next thing I do there is I'm going to create a little story for you. Okay, like a little situation with there's normally a few different people in the situation. So there's at least two people in the situation, or there could be groups in these little stories, groups of people. So because the best way to learn phrasal verbs is to actually connect a phrasal verb with a situation where you can use the phrasal verb, appropriate situations for the phrasal verb. So what I'm going to do is, and you really just have to go through the video to really understand this, but I'm going to leave like 5 seconds, and this is going to be a time for you to try and think of an answer. Okay, you need to think of an answer using the phrasal, well, the phrasal verb needs to be in the sentence. Okay, so I could ask you for a sentence in the past, the present, or the future, and you need to think of a sentence using the phrasal verb that we're working on. So the first phrasal verb that we're going to look at, you see, that's when we're talking about the future, we don't really use will. We use gonna a lot in normal everyday English. So the first phrasal verb that we're gonna look at is ask out. Okay, so ask out, and here, okay, normally within a phrasal verb, between the verb and the preposition, sometimes we have an object, sometimes we have an object pronoun. Okay, and here for ask out, the object pronouns of him and her are used a lot. Okay, so now with ask out is really a sort of a romantic thing. Okay, you can't really use this when talking about your colleagues or your friends. Ask out is, the situation is boy likes a girl, a man likes a woman, or the other way around. Okay, a girl likes, and obviously if a girl likes a girl, but I don't want to go into that too much. But basically, one person likes another person, and in a romantic sort of way, and they want to ask them out. And what you normally see is, it's very familiar, very normal to see ask out to dinner or ask out to a movie. Okay, because those are the events that normally happen when you ask someone out. You don't really ask someone out to breakfast or ask someone out to lunch. Ask out is really about dating. Okay, so just to give you a little story here, it's Monday morning. We have John, and John had a bit of a party on the weekend. He's very tired. He's a little bit hungover, maybe, and in the office as well, we have, who do we have? Suzanne. Okay, Suzanne is working in the office. And now in the office as well, you have the boss. Okay, so now we gotta use the phrasal verb from different perspectives. Okay, and imagine yourself as John, or imagine yourself as Suzanne, or imagine yourself as the boss. Okay, now you need to create dialogue. Maybe you're going to be thinking as the boss, or maybe you're going to be speaking as the boss. And we're going to do this in the past, the present, and the future. Okay, so now with Brian, okay, I'm going to basically do a demonstration here first. Okay, so I'm Brian. Now I need to use the phrasal verb ask out. So I'm Brian, oh no, Monday morning, God, I hate work on a Monday morning. My head is killing me. But look at Suzanne over there. Oh, she's lovely. Suzanne's beautiful. I would, now he's thinking, John is thinking, I would love to ask Suzanne out. Okay, ask Suzanne out. So Suzanne goes between the verb and the preposition. Okay, now that's from John's perspective. I would love, or I would like to ask Suzanne out. Now from Suzanne's perspective, okay, and just imagine John keeps looking over at her, and it's a little weird. Okay, you know, he's very tired, but he keeps looking at Suzanne. Now Suzanne's over there, and she can see it. You know, it's Monday morning. She's you know, back to work. She can see John. You know, John's acting a little strange. John keeps looking at her. Oh, okay. Now you need to think of the dialogue in Suzanne's brain. Okay, in her mind. Now, what could she be thinking? Okay, now I'm going to give you 5 or 10 seconds just to think of a sentence using the phrasal verb ask out, and then after that I'm going to give you my own suggestions. Okay, so here. Okay, for me, what I would, so now imagine that, so I'm going to imagine that I am Suzanne, and so now, Monday morning, you know, back to work. John's looking at me a little strange, you know, he keeps looking over at me. This is very weird. I don't know, but I've got a feeling that he would like to ask me out. Okay, so now the object pronoun changes because I'm thinking from the perspective of Suzanne. Okay, I think, so I, Suzanne, I think that John wants to ask me out. Okay, now that's from my perspective. Now from the boss's perspective, put yourself in the position of the boss. What is he thinking? And I'll give you 5 or 10 seconds. Okay, now this is just my suggestion, but the boss could be thinking like, you know, oh, it's a Monday morning, you know, back to work. John seems to be looking over at Suzanne a lot. It's a little strange, but I've got a feeling that John wants to ask Suzanne out. Okay, so now everything changes, all the pronouns and all the names, everything. So what the practice here is to become good at using the phrasal verb and manipulating the objects and the pronouns and changing the structure of everything. You've got a bunch of pieces, now you have to put them in a new structure when you're talking from different perspectives. So now we've got to think about this. We've got to try and use this phrasal verb in the past. So imagine the boss. Now the boss is talking to his friend, and you know, he's got a story from last week. You know, this story about John and Suzanne. So the boss is talking to his friend, and he said, well, it was a little strange. It was last Monday morning, and I was in the office. I was having a look at John. Now I'm going to give you 5 or 10 seconds to think of that dialogue, talking about a past situation, and now you need to use that phrasal verb. You know, use it in the past. Okay, so go. Okay, so it should be something like this. Okay, there's many ways to do it, but okay, so I'm the boss and I'm talking to my friend. Last week, you know, last Monday morning, I was in the office. You know, not happy to be there, but whatever. It's Monday morning, back to work. I was looking over at John, and John kept looking. John kept looking at Suzanne. I just had a feeling, but you know, what happened next is John got up and he asked Suzanne out. So John asked Suzanne out. So now the phrasal verb changes. And what you can also see is that when you're telling a story, when you're talking about a past situation and you're talking about a story that happened in the past, there's no problem with changing between the tenses. Okay, you can change between the past continuous, the past perfect, and the past simple. Okay, so last week Last Monday morning, I was sitting at my desk. For example, I was sitting at my desk, past continuous. I had just come into work. That is the past perfect. Okay, so the past perfect is used when you're telling a story. It's used to give extra information. Okay, I was sitting at my desk last Monday morning. I had, at a moment before that time, I had just come into work. I was looking over at John, and so I was looking at John, past continuous, and I saw, past simple, I saw that John was looking at Suzanne. So now we past continuous again. I saw, past perfect, that John was looking at Suzanne, past continuous. And what do you know? After that, John went over and asked Suzanne out. Now that's the past simple of the phrasal verb. Okay. Now, if you want to use the phrasal verb with the past continuous, what would you say? Here's a few seconds. Well, how would you use the phrasal verb ask out in that little story using the past continuous? So if you said something like John was asking Suzanne out, you'd be correct. Okay. Now, the way you could say this is John was asking Suzanne out when the boss, I came over to see what they were doing. Okay, so the past continuous is used. All of these different tenses are used just to give extra information. Normally when you use the past continuous, there is other information that you want to give. You can't only use the past continuous. Normally you would say John was asking Suzanne out. Now you want to give a little, that's really a setup. Okay, you're setting something up. That's another phrasal verb, but you're preparing to give more information. So John was asking Suzanne out when I came over to see what they were doing. Now there's more information using the past simple. So now, how would you use the past perfect? So the present perfect is I have done all my work today. I have seen the movie. Okay, I have already seen the movie. So we use, for the present perfect, we use have and has for he, she, and it. Well, let's not get too complicated with it, but it's normally have and then the past participle of the verb. Okay, so I have worked a lot today. I have done my homework. I have seen. Now you got a lot of irregular verbs there too, but now the past perfect would be I had. Okay, now you need to use the verb have in the past, so it's had. Okay, I had seen the movie. I had come into work. And that verb there is the past participle. So now how would you use ask out in the past with the past perfect? Okay, go. Okay, so if it was something like, if I had to think of a sentence like that, I would say that something like this. So last Monday morning, I came into the office to hear that John had asked Suzanne out that Monday morning, which is a strange time to ask someone out, but let's just look at that again. So last Monday morning, I was, or now if you can use the past continuous if you want, I was coming into work, I was coming into the office when I heard that John had asked Suzanne out. Okay, so I was coming at that moment. At a moment before that, John had asked Suzanne out. Okay, and now if you want to use the present, okay, now how would you use ask out using the present continuous? Okay, you would say something like, right now, John is asking Suzanne out. Okay, the present continuous, I am talking right now. You are listening. Okay, John is asking Suzanne out. Okay, past continuous, John was asking Suzanne out this morning or yesterday. Okay, now for the future, you would say, you know, tomorrow John will be asking Suzanne out. For the present perfect, and we use the present perfect to talk about something that happened in the past. Okay, so and it's not really specific. So you know, like I could say to, now I'm another colleague, okay, Peter, and Peter is talking to Stephen, okay, and Peter says, what happened? Why is everyone talking about John and Suzanne? So Peter is talking to Stephen. Stephen could say, oh, John has asked Suzanne out. Okay, that's the present perfect, to talk about something that happened in the past, but it's not too specific. You're not giving too many specifics when it happened. So now, talking about the future, it's very common to see gonna being used in the future. If you look at everyday street language or just everyday English, we use gonna a lot. We don't really say John will ask Suzanne out. It's more common to see John is going to ask Suzanne out, and then going to really becomes one new word, and a lot of people most people actually use gonna. Okay, so it's the subject, and then it's the verb. Normally, you know, there's a conjunction. So if I'm talking about me, I would say I'm. Okay, now the correct grammar here is I am going to, and then verb, then the infinitive or the phrasal verb. Okay, so but what really ends up happening is we use I'm going to, and that really changes to I'm gonna, and then verb. So I'm gonna cook dinner later. I'm gonna study Chinese later. I'm gonna see a movie later. Now for you are. Okay, now the conjunction there is you're, and then it's you're gonna. We don't really, well, technically it's you are going to, but what that really becomes is you're gonna, and then verb. So you're gonna cook dinner later. You're gonna see a movie later. And for question, you know, are you gonna see a movie later? And then, so now, but for names, we would use Brian is going to, but what it becomes is Brian's gonna, Suzanne's gonna, they're gonna, we're gonna. Okay, so now if you want to use, I'll give you the first example using the phrasal verb ask out. I'm gonna ask Suzanne out. Okay, now I want you to think of, now pretend that you're telling a story about Brian. Okay, now you got to say Brian is da 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 and use the phrasal verb. So I'll give you 10 seconds. So if it's something like this, you would say Brian's gonna ask Suzanne out this evening. Brian's gonna ask Suzanne out tomorrow. Okay, so that we use gonna, going to, when we're talking about the future. Okay, so you know, if now what about Suzanne's response? What do you think? So try and think of a sentence using I think Suzanne's. So what do you think Suzanne is gonna do? So you could say, I think Suzanne's gonna say no. I think Suzanne's gonna say yes. I think Suzanne's gonna run screaming out the office. Could be anything. Okay, it's just your opinion. I have a feeling that Suzanne is gonna, or I have a feeling that Suzanne's gonna say yes or say no. Okay, now there's another way to use this. Another common construction that you see is when when we're talking about obligation, or when you're talking about like I have to do something, I need to do something, or Brian or John needs to do something. Okay, so what we end up using there is we could say John has to. Okay, John likes Suzanne. What do you think he should do? John has to ask Suzanne out. I think he has to ask Suzanne out. Now, another way to say that is John has got to ask Suzanne out. And when we use got to, there's more imperative. It becomes more important. He has got to ask Suzanne out. There's even more obligation in a way. But what that really turns into when people get kind of lazy with language, or when I don't know how, but this is how it turned out, is that people use gotta, so what it really turns into is John has gotta ask Suzanne out, and what you really see is John's gotta ask Suzanne out. What does he have to do? He's gotta ask Suzanne out. He's gotta. Okay, he's got to, he has got to, he needs to. Okay, so now, what do you think that Suzanne has to do in this situation? If John is asking Suzanne out, what would you say she has to do? Obviously, she can do whatever you want, but this is just your opinion. So try and use Suzanne has gotta, or Suzanne's gotta, and then verb. Okay, so go. Okay, if you said something like, and okay, we're not talking about the actual story here, we're just looking at the language, so Suzanne doesn't have to do anything, but what you could say is, John's gonna ask Suzanne out. I think Suzanne's gotta be nice to him, or Suzanne's gotta think about this. Suzanne has got to think about this. Suzanne's got to think about this clearly. Okay, you're just talking about what she needs to do. Okay, but when you're listening to real English, really try and notice things like gotta and gonna. I'm gonna for the future. I gotta is for obligations. But to really try and listen to, really try and notice this when you're studying, when you're listening to natural English. And that's it for Ask Out.